So, we're having our first InterEngineering discussion. To find out what it's like being an LGBT, and we're focusing on the T today, a T engineer in engineering. So with us, we've got Jacqui Gavin, who works in equalities and diversity for the government. We've got Christina Riley, who works for Balfour Beatty, a leading engineering and construction firm. And we've got Isobel Sheldon, who works for Johnson Matthey Battery Systems. So, why don't we do some myth busting about being trans, the journey to becoming trans? You know, what was it like for you? What are some of the practical issues that you face and practical dilemmas that maybe everyone will identify with?
So I think for me, I think I'm different to a lot of trans people. A lot of transgender people say they're born in the wrong body, and I don't feel like that. For me, when I was very young, I knew my mum had like the joy of sex. You know, I don't know if you remember that. There's like pencil drawn pictures of men and women and relationships and whatever goes on in the bedroom. And I used to look at this book sneakily, and it's quite graphic about the female body and the male body, and I just used to think, why don't I, am I going to look like him, or am I going to look like her? Why I'm a boy, I'm going to look like him. Big bushy beards, was it?
I think it was.
Not a very attractive look, but then the woman's, was a very beautiful woman, So that's like that is honestly my earliest sort of thinking about gender, really.
Okay.
And I was probably about 5, I would guess. And then when I became a teenager, I sort of explored my gender with dressing up in clothing, but didn't really do much with that. And then I suppose my next sort of step in the ladder of transition was probably when I got my first job. I worked in Birmingham. Now, back in the 80s, because I'm that old, on the back page of The Sun, I don't know if you remember this, but they used to run adverts of Transformation, the shop, where it had a picture, it was labelled like from he to she, had a picture of a probably builder type bloke, and then a beautiful picture of him having transitioned, and it was like an advert about that sort of size, like an A5 sort of advert. And I used to pick this up in The Sun, as you do, and I'm thinking, I'm just inquisitive about that. And anyway, I had the opportunity when I worked in Birmingham to visit Transformation, and I was as nervous as anything. And I bought some clothing at the shop, which is like 10 times more expensive than going to Primark, Yeah, so that was like really the beginning when I was probably about 25, I guess, of dressing a bit more seriously as an adult. And then from that, I ended up probably a couple of times a year going to places like Pink Panthers in Milton Keynes, which is an LGBT nightclub. You had the Way Out Club in London, the Phil Beach in London. Although they shut that down just before I was going to go there for the first time.
That was in Earl's Court.
In Earl's Court, yeah.
Okay.
So back in the 90s, there were very few opportunities to meet other trans people. There were no networks in business, obviously. There were no, the internet wasn't actually in existence back in those days, So you didn't, this is what we're talking about. There was no outlets to find other transgender people, But from then, I used to, gradually over time, I used to dress more and more. And as a male guy, I was actually quite a shy person. I was quite a quiet, reserved person. I never really felt I fitted in with the male sort of camaraderie.
Yeah.
I mean, as a man, I was quite a good-looking guy, you know. But I never really, I wasn't into football or sports. I never felt I really gelled with like the strong masculine type of person. So for me, over time, I just grew into being Christina because I just found the person I was, and I became just happier when I was Christina.
So did you become that person, discover that identity internally first? If you see what I mean.
I think just through going out regularly, and I ended up going out every weekend to these different clubs like Pink Panthers, and you take on a whole new persona just by changing your look, your appearance. You become, what I always say, you become a different character of yourself. You know, so Chris and Christina are the same person, but you become a different character, and when you become female. And that, for me, that character of Christina just overtook Chris, and Chris got left behind. I just became who I am today, you know. So for me, my personal journey is that I just grew into being the person I am now. I'm happier now. This, you know, what you see is what you get. And, you know, I'm, for the first time in my life, I can be myself. You know, there's no secrets to anybody. There's nothing hidden.
Yes.
And you know, this is the person I am.
Well, there are some similarities in everybody's story, and that sort of being part of that male part of community and society didn't really sit well with me either. And I was very socially incapacitated. So that male bonding, that going to the pub and doing the male banter thing didn't really work for me. But my story is quite different in that I knew fundamentally that I should have been born female when I was 8 years old. Okay. And it was a very sort of deep-rooted feeling that something had gone wrong and that I was born into a life that I shouldn't have been leading. But as you know, puberty took me off in a direction that I didn't really want to go. The internet wasn't around, as you say, so information was very, very hard to come by. And for reasons that I won't go into, I pretty much decided that I had to bury those feelings and just get on with life as a male because I didn't really see an alternative. And it was only when my marriage came to an end and I ran my own business for 10 years very successfully. That came to an end during the pretty awful recession that we've all been through in recent living memory. And slowly, one by one, the things that were important to me, that are built up around me as this male environment, was stripped away from me. But I realised that apart from my children, who were always there for me, and this has not been easy on them, you know, I had nothing left, and I was pretty much stood there with this screaming voice in the back of my head that's always been there, that I'd ignored for 3 decades, or over 3 decades, that said, you know, you haven't been born into the right body, you've been born into the wrong existence, and that's when I came to realise that I needed to start to embrace it. Now, I'm very strange, you know, for a trans person, I hadn't dressed. I never dressed behind my wife's back, never did it in secret. I kept it completely buried because to me it felt wrong to do so. I felt that although one could term my life was living a lie for all those decades, equally I was wanting to give it the best shot I could. And I'm very proud of the person I was before because that person tried very, very hard to make it work in all areas. And ultimately didn't succeed in pushing that through right to the end. And you know, I suddenly realised that I got to a point where I just couldn't continue to function as a human being the way I was going. I was becoming more and more miserable with myself. I was becoming very, how do you say, irritable with the world around me, and my behaviour was starting to spiral out of control. So I was very much a person who was not in control of what was happening around him. And that's when I discovered the trans scene, and the internet opened up the fact that there was a community out there that I could join, and I could start to explore my gender. And within probably 6 months of joining that community, and I went right to the centre of it. I was a bit like a Tasmanian devil. Went through my teenage years in about 6 months.
Oh God!
But I suddenly realised after about 6 months that this was something that needed to become a permanent change. And I started to talk to the business Ricardo about it in the September of 2013, November. Actually, it was November. And then I started on the process to transition. And my first gender clinic appointment was the 28th of May 2014. And I rattled through that system really, really quickly. And I now sit here, fully transitioned and engaged in my work with Johnson Matthey, and I feel as if I've achieved what I needed to achieve out of that process. But it was a very, very different story in that there weren't years of cross-dressing in the background, and hopefully those that know me from before will probably be quite reassured that that wasn't the case. So no, it was very much a watershed moment and a decision that this thing that had been haunting me for 36, 37, 38 years, I finally needed to come to terms with it, and I finally needed to address it, because I firmly believe that if I hadn't stepped on this path, I wouldn't be here.
See, for me, on my journey, when I was about 27, so that's about 18 years ago, the secret of not being able to be myself, of not being able to come out to anybody, even though I was going out quite often, was I actually suffered huge panic attacks and palpitations through the anxiety, and I actually was on beta blockers to slow my heart down, and because I used to have massive thuds in the chest, and it was just through, in my head, I was thinking about it. This is how it overtook me, and the whole, knowing that I wanted to tell somebody about it, but I couldn't tell my wife, I couldn't tell my family. I had 2 little children, and I just became really, really ill with anxiety.
You knew what the root cause was of your stress, yet couldn't vocalise it because you couldn't
do anything about it.
Well, I went to the doctors and I said I was getting anxious because I'd had a couple of car accidents. I couldn't face telling my doctor, and in the end, these panic attacks went on for 10 years, and it was like I used to wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning, just having a panic attack just like that, and so disabling. And then go to work, it got so bad. I'd go into London, I'd be on the train, and you'd start thinking about it and have a panic attack on the train. And it's the most disabling experience, and you're just panicking.
Yeah.
You can't actually describe to anybody in doing justice the stress that you carry around. Because for me, this was a massive secret that I haven't told anybody, and it becomes all-consuming.
Oh,
totally consuming. And for me, it was pretty much because it was so totally buried. There was this suit of armour that I used to wear the whole time, and I was absolutely terrified. And I can't tell you how terrified I was that people would see through that suit of armour, see a chink, and get a glimpse beneath that hard outer coating of what I really was inside. And I can't really again describe to you the feeling of relief when I finally came out. And don't forget, this was less than 2 years ago that I came out. And I was finally be able to say to the world, this is who I am. And I'm sorry, but if you don't like it, it's your problem. It's not my problem.
For me, what changed my life was the LGBT network at Balfour Beatty. and organisations like InterEngineering, and I will sit here, and it's quite emotional really, that it's changed my life. It's cured my gender dysphoria, or it's cured my anxiety, and it was chronic anxiety.
Yeah.
I genuinely, back in the 90s, I genuinely used to think I was going to die through anxiety.
Wow.
And, you know, I was really, to me, I know I was very ill. But now I'm sat here and like being who I am, and it's a non-issue. We're talking about it, and it's, you know, it's like 20 years of history to a place where I've accepted myself, and I can go to work and I can have my career, and my children see me now, and my parents see me now. You know, and all the worries that was built up over such a long period have gone.
Yeah.
And like, you know, this is why InterEngineering is so important, because, you know, you will change people like me that are on the same journey as me, and it's, you know, just, you know, I mean, I don't think it's overrated saying it saves lives, because the network for me saved my life.
Yeah, the community saved mine.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you feel the same way that I do about it. It's going from denying to myself what I am to now, if somebody works out that I'm trans, and I don't hide it, I live my life very openly. So when somebody says to me, "Oh God, you're trans," it's like, am I the first trans person you've met?
I'm proud of being trans.
Well done, good for you. I'm really, really proud of who I am.
No, you should be.
And to go from being ashamed and hiding it to being proud and living my life openly in the space of 2 years.
It's a big change.
It's a big change, a massive change.
You can't overplay it, you can't overstate it, can you? That
you can't.
For me, you know, I was ashamed for 20 years, living that shame, coming out to your parents ashamed, but now, or to my children, you know, but now when I see them, I'm proud actually, and I'm saying, well, you know, look, I've got a great job in a great industry, and made some great friends, and doing some amazing things that I never dreamt I'd be doing as myself.
Yeah, it's strange that you mentioned career, because I thought when I transitioned that transitioning would be a break on my career, and that the business I was within probably viewed it, and this wasn't the case, but at the time I thought so. This is a problem we would rather not have to deal with. But they went along with it, and the way they went along with it was fantastic, and I'm very grateful to them. But I thought that I would probably achieve the highest I would have achieved in my career. Sorry, and I'd sort of hit that level where I wouldn't be able to go beyond. But since then, I've applied for a new job. It's at a more senior position that I had before. It got accepted. I got offered the job. And I've now seen that even after transition, I've moved from one level within my professional standing up to the next level. And it's not been a break on my career at all.
No.
And to a certain degree, I'm a little bit astonished by that, because it's been the complete reverse of what I was expecting. But on the other side of it, having worked within this new role for 6-7 weeks now, and got to know the people involved, why would it have been an issue? Why did I think it would be a break on my career? Because the people I work with are great, they're wonderful, and very, very accepting, and just accept me as the professional that I am, and my gender identity doesn't play any part in that whatsoever.
Well, I think you're both great role models for the profession, and you should keep doing what you're doing. And I think together we can work together and be a stronger force of unity, like for the profession and for helping those that are still in the closet and, you know, needing to reconcile themselves. And I guess if you had maybe some last bits of advice to people who may have been in the position that you were in back in the day, what would be those words of advice?
Don't be afraid to be yourself.
Yeah, I think just have the courage to, you know, all the worries that I went through actually materialised into nothing. And I think industry is now ready for LGBT people. The culture is changing. So just be brave and you know, get involved with networks, make friends, and things can happen.
But even beyond that is, don't allow yourself to be put into a position whereby you are living a life of misery because you're worried about what other people think. So, you know, to be genuine, to be authentic is the greatest gift that we can possibly have, and those around you will appreciate your honesty.
But for me, in the last year, I've had no transphobia for me at all, not one incident in the industry. So that, I think that's living proof. So,
and engineering is a great career, and it's so accepting and full of such intelligent and wonderful people that there's no reason to be anything other than yourself.
Of course. Jacqui, you got any advice?
I think one of the most important things is exactly what the girls just said, is just to be yourself, to be authentic, to be complete. I'll go back 30 years ago and think the fact that where we were compared to when I began my transition to where we are now, to see where those two are, and to have a network such as InterEngineering, is for organisations not to be afraid, because there's nothing to be afraid about this. This is LGBT anti, or LGBT anti-ally, or whatever other acronym you want to come up with, is something that is truly not to be afraid of. It's to be embraced.
Yes.
And it's to be embraced from both sides, from both the individual and from the organisations who the individual is employed with, to be able to get to that point. And if we can get to that point, wherever you're working within this sector, again, I go back to the point I raised before, whether it's on the shop floor, or at director level, or anything in between, be yourself, be authentic.
Well, I think that's a great point to end on. I just want to say thank you, and here's to being yourself and being authentic. Thanks.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Cheers.